Welcome to another episode of the Starter Girls podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Loading, and wherever you are tuning in today, we are so glad to have you. So excited about my guest today. We just realized that, we're both from the same town. We've met before, but, sometimes funny things happen and we get back connected with people and you realize you already knew this person before they jump on the show. So I'm excited to chat with her, but let's open this thing up. Ever wonder what happens when a college side hustle turns into a multi-business empire? My next guest didn't just build one business. She has built several thriving companies and is still going. And so you guys are going to get to hear from her in just a few minutes. But before we do that, we do need to do a quick shout out to our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Walt Mills Productions. Need to add excitement to your YouTube videos or some expert hands for editing? Look no further. Walt Mills is the solution you've been searching for. Walt is not only your go-to guy for spicing up content, he's the force behind a thriving film production company with numerous titles in the pipeline. Always on the lookout for raw talent, Walt is eager to collaborate on film and internet productions. With a background deeply rooted in entertainment and promotion, Walt Mills leverages years of skills to give you the spotlight you deserve. Want to learn more about Walt and his work? Head on over to waltmillsproductions.net and let your content shine. All right. And with that, we do want to say to head on over to startergirls.com. And why do you want to go over there? Well, for a couple of reasons. One, you want to sign up for our community newsletter so that you can stay in the know of everything that's happening, upcoming episodes. And then, of course, if you have missed an episode or if you just want to catch some of those early days of the Starter Girls, you can always go back and see those. And then, of course, if you are a budding or aspiring, or maybe you're grooving along entrepreneur and you want to find out what may be hindering your success, we have a fun quiz over there, a success block quiz, and it will tell you in 2 minutes what may be the number one block that is keeping you stuck right now. So be sure you head over to startergirls.com and take care of whatever you need to take care of over there. All right, so let's do this thing. All right, today's guest, we're talking to Rani Alfers, an accomplished entrepreneur with nearly 2 decades of experience in the insurance industry. She owns a top-performing all-lines insurance agency here in Texas and is also the CEO of EMK Skincare. Through her investment company, EMR Equity, Rani's on a mission to empower and invest in women founders, creators, and business owners. She's a relationship builder, a mentor, and the voice behind the Working Women Mentor podcast, where she champions the stories and insights of inspiring women. From building businesses to helping others launch their own podcast, Rani's passion for connection and growth shines through everything she does. So Rani, welcome to the show. We are so excited to have you here today.
I know. I'm excited to be here, Jennifer. Thank you so much for having me.
It's going to be so much fun. So to our audience, as I was telling Rani beforehand, I got to catch up with some of the stuff, the work that she's doing, her podcast, and love what she's doing as far as empowering women and inspiring women. And that's really kind of what we're doing here. Although we have a very large male following as well, our show is all about inspiring women to do great things in life and in business. And so I think this is going to be such a great episode. And I'm so excited to chat with you today.
It's a good place for them to come and learn how to inspire us, right? I mean, just listen in and get the know, get in the know today.
Absolutely. I agree. And, it's funny because I have podcasts that are men podcasts that I love to tune into. I think we share, we have different things, but we do share a lot of, similar pain points as entrepreneurs. And I think we can all learn from one another. And so that's what makes this so great.
100%.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about you. Let's talk about what you got going, because you are doing a lot of cool things right now. And as I mentioned in the bio, this all started kind of with a college side hustle, and it's turned into kind of this Rani Alfers empire. So tell us a little bit about what's going on in your world right now.
Oh my gosh, a lot of wonderful things, and they all happen, and I'm embracing it as they come, Jennifer. But yes, I mean, long ago, I feel like many years ago in college, I started a coffee shop, and I wanted to start something. I wanted to start a business, and I loved coffee. So I'm like, let's do coffee then. And so that was really an interesting, eye-opening business experience for me at a very young age. I call it my college project. It was down the street from our college in Lafayette, Louisiana. And just a very unique experience. And, taking from those days, selling the business, and then moving along, ending up in Texas eventually, to starting my all lines insurance agency. And that's been an incredible journey, from starting it from scratch, not knowing anything, not knowing anyone, not knowing how to get around, in traffic or just anything. And starting from there to 20 years later, I can't even believe it. It's actually 20 years this year. It just blows my mind. But along the way, I also realized I had some skill sets and some passions and some areas that I wanted to continue to double down on. And that's really what has led me to more of the investment and acquisition side. And EMK Skincare was an opportunity that I found. It's been 2.5, 3 years now. And that is, most people are like, skincare? What in the world? You're from an insurance industry. What do you know about that? And again, just doubling down on the skills and the passion and the vision is not dedicated to just one space and one lane. And so we fast forward to the podcast that came about several years ago because I just felt like more positive female voices in a working women's space was needed. I mean, your podcast is a great example, what you're doing, your voices that you bring in, and that well-rounded nature of just good positive things to hear when we need them. And I wanted to focus my podcast on these micro moments, these mentorship moments, and we can get into that later, Jennifer, but it's something that has just brought a lot of joy to my life and hopefully the listeners. I get a lot of great feedback. It's grown so much. But it's just what, like I said, it's you find a passion, you find a skill that you may be wanting to try out and test out and see how it works, and you just do it.
Yeah.
So it leads me to working on a lot. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I want to say something. I have so much to say about this. First of all, you and I have so many parallels. It's so funny because I was in a coffee company for a while. I was also a Mary Kay for 22 years, did
Oh my
skincare,
gosh.
right? Like I also did insurance.
I
And so,
love it.
yes, I started in my
My
mother, just
sister
back
from another podcast.
exactly, right? Like my mother had back in the late 80s and 90s had an executive suite in Houston. This is before we had like the co-op, the we-working
Yeah.
spaces, all of those. Okay. My mom had an executive suites and there was a farmer's insurance agent that used to work in there. So I started working for a farmer's agent in middle school. No kidding.
I
Back then we
love
didn't have
it.
internet. So I would go in there and I would file papers in a filing cabinet. And then I ended up working for this guy through high school off and on, through college off and on. Thought I was going to go into insurance. And then I ended up working for several different insurance companies. And then life happened, got married, had babies, all that. But then funny thing was I went into Mary Kay and worked in the leadership in that for a long time. And then was introduced to an opportunity at the tail end of that to back when the skinny coffee was kind of hitting the market.
Yeah.
The company had the patent, came to Texas, and another former Mary Kay sales director and myself kind of spearheaded with a few other people here in Dallas, the coffee thing. And so I
I
feel like you
love
and I
it.
had some parallels in different segues of our lives. But I think, the common theme here that what I'm hearing from you, and you may share this with me, is that all of these things, when you said like double down on these skill sets, you picked up little pieces of each of these endeavors, right? And you found where your gifts are within these endeavors. And that's the double downing part, right? Like I
That's right.
recognized in the work that I was doing, one of the things I really loved doing and all of those was sharing stories. I had to share stories in Mary Kay. I had to share stories in the coffee. Now maybe in the insurance, I didn't, not as much because I didn't know yet, but that we were getting there. That helped me build
Yeah.
some other skills.
Yeah, you
But I
hear a lot of stories in
yes, I
insurance,
heard a
right?
lot of stories. Yes.
Yes.
But I think it showed me over the time the connection between building these stories with people. And this is what how people, what's the word I'm looking for? They connect with other people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I think the message here is just this picking up and learning, rolling with these, the adapting, rolling, being okay with this nonlinear progress, but also taking away what you need from all of these experiences and figuring out how they continue to help you grow in new ways.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. I mean, I remember in my early 20s, I'm just like, oh my gosh, what am I good at? I'll never figure this out. Like, we're all thinking that, what will I do? What are my constraints, just I feel like I would ask everyone who knew me really well, what do you think? Like I wanted to see their opinion of what they observed even. Like I was in a real hunt for for this superpower. Where is it? What exactly is it? Because I wanted to follow and run down that path. And what I've really learned is they're evolving over time. I mean, there's not, there might be a primary, but there are so many pieces that we're all so good at, and sometimes one is a little bit stronger, one you're going to run down a lane with a lot faster, right? And it's not just this one thing. It's multiple pieces of you that are inside there wanting to be exercised and wanting to be let out. So it reminds me of like opening a bottle of champagne. It's like ready
Yeah.
to go. I'm ready to get out of there.
Yeah, and I think to your point, it's so true that, we spend so much time in our early, career, like we're really trying to identify who we are, really trying to hone in on what is that thing. And, and if I were to tell you, I haven't shared this in a while, but I've shared this through several episodes, I joke, I love and laugh about this all the time because when I was a kid, like we didn't have internet, we had cassette players and we had little cassettes we'd put in there. And I
Yes.
remember hitting that record button on the thing and recording myself talking on on my on my little player.
Oh, I love it.
Little did I know back then that here we would be today having like podcasts and doing, I mean, we had TV back then, right? News people, but we didn't have this. We didn't know we were going to have this kind of stuff. And I think it's so funny because I had a girl come on my show years ago that said, your skills find you, like they identify you. And that's what I'm saying. I think we spend so much time in the beginning really trying to find them. And I think when we start to learn to roll with it and just adapt, I think they sort of just kind of find themselves
Yeah.
in you. Do you
Yeah,
know
it's
what I
like
mean?
you're born for media in some way or somehow, right? And it's fun, I think, to look back. Like you're looking back and thinking about that cassette player. Like can look back and think about just being so young, like, pretending I had my own business out of something. Like I
Yeah.
was selling something out of like a catalog to my dad. I'm like, call me and buy something from my
Yep.
store. Here's my store, and I'd give him a catalog, or just small things like that. And when you start thinking about them, it clicks.
Yes.
And I bet there's so many more, that we haven't uncovered yet. So that's kind of the fun part.
Yeah. I think if you and I would have been friends when we were little, we would have been doing that because I was doing all kinds of businesses. I was making knitted little things and trying to figure out how I was going to sell them. I think I've spent my whole life as a child all the way up trying to create a business. Like I'm
Right?
still like if you were to call me up, today or tomorrow and you'd be like, "Hey, Jennifer, I got a business idea." I'm going to be like, "Tell me what you got going on, Rainey. I want to know." And I
I
don't know if
mean,
I'm going to do anything. I don't know, but I love hearing people create businesses and ideas. And that's what I think is so fun about what we get to do in this podcast world is we have the ability to sit across from these people that are doing cool things and learn about what they're doing. And, and that's, I think the best part of this, if it is the connection and which I kind of mentioned that about you, about being a connector too, on a whole nother segue. But I think so much of what we're doing really comes all back to this building connection
it
and
does.
taking our
It,
skill sets and rolling that into it.
And it becomes that foundation as opposed to this strategy of like, oh, let me just build a bigger network or let me go find new friends, or it's just finding that, that filter and that foundation of who you want around you, and what does that person look like? And when you have it's like dating, right? It's like all of that. It's figure out the kind of person you want, and then they just start appearing. It's very interesting. They really
Yeah.
do. And I know that I don't want to say it's a cliche. Everyone knows, fine, you're as strong as your five people around
Right.
you of your circle, and you want to find those people that really align and uplift. But I think first you've got to figure out who they are,
Yeah.
and then the rest of it's easy. I think
Hmm.
it comes natural when you're anywhere, coffee shop, a skincare shop, whatever it is, wherever you are, you then know how to be open and receive it because you already know that they align.
Yeah. And you said something a minute ago that I think is important. I want to touch upon this and have you elaborate maybe. You said knowing who they are, right? Because for somebody listening to, they go, okay, how do you know who they are? Like, how do you go about figuring out who are those people? I maybe elaborate on from your
Yeah.
perspective what that looks like.
Well, I think first you have to know who you're looking for, and then you have to listen. You have to observe, you have to be present, and you have to engage and ask questions. And I don't mean an interview process, but I always say just speak to someone like you've known them forever, like you would speak to your best friend. Be that warm and engaging, let your guard down. And it's amazing how much will flow out from the right person.
Right.
And I think often we're not as present as we could be. We're thinking ahead of like, who are they? What can we get from them? What do I need to do for them? Like, we're thinking about all of these things that aren't even coming to fruition yet.
Right.
And that presence is important. I do believe if you give yourself a little bit of time with someone and a really, pretty honest, polite conversation, you can start unwinding that person and get a good idea if they're starting to meet your filter.
Yeah, yeah. And I like that you said the filter, because I think too, all of this comes back to understanding those people is also understanding you, right? Like yourself. And I think, when we talk about, you mentioned kind of like, I don't want to get into all the dating thing. I've been married for a really long time, so we kind of passed all that part. But you think about like knowing who you are, right? Because you can't make room for the right people if you don't know who you are and what your boundaries and your parameters and knowing your worth. And so I think this is all good. But I wanted to tell you thank you for saying that, because people listening to this, maybe you and I talk this lingo and we go, okay, hey, we are the sum of our five people. We know who our people are, right? And we know who we're not going to bring into the five or into the space. But somebody listening to this may be a new budding entrepreneur coming into this world, and they're like, what does this even mean, right? And I say this to you because I've worked with a lot of different people in the entrepreneur space, and sometimes I'll get these new people that come in, or maybe they've been in the corporate and they're coming in and they don't even really understand that. You know what I'm saying? It's like a kind of a new thing to them, and they're like, my people are fine, and I'm like, no, they're not. But
Yeah.
you really have to look, and to know that you have to know yourself, right? And the thing is, as you level up, so do your people, right? Like the more you go up, the more your people do.
They do. And it's also, I feel like that connection and can also vary based on your season you're in.
Oh
So
yeah.
whereas we might know all of these things, but we might right now, for instance, not have a lot of time to invest in new people or sometimes our existing people, quite
Yeah.
frankly. And depending on where, what projects we have, what goals, it's summertime, for example. Like I try to I try to take a lighter approach.
Sure.
I try to get rid of a lot of other things so I can really focus in on more time with my son, more strategic projects that we've been wrapping up so they can be executed during that time while I'm with him or away.
Sure.
So it's sort of that balance, between you don't, it's not an everyday deal. Some days are just going to look different when you're trying to build those relationships. But again, I think the right people know that about you. My friends who know what I have going on right now, they don't expect to see me at the moment. Like they know, like
Yeah.
she's heads down in this, but I know we have something on the calendar. Like we can't wait to connect,
Sure.
but it's just being meaningful about it.
Yeah, and I think you're right about the seasons. I think that's so important to understand that. I think it allows you to give yourself grace, right? Because you recognize, it's kind of like I talk about, like when we are mindful, whether it be in our business practices or in our self care, meaning like our exercise or eating habits or whatever. I always say that, like for instance, I work out almost every day, but there are some days that I decide not to because I've got too much going on that particular day. But I don't beat myself up because I make that choice not to, because I do it pretty much every day as a habit, that there's not a lot of that, self guilt. I will tell you that on Father's Day, we went, my son is a chef, and we went to his restaurant, and I am a low carb eater, meaning I eat very little sugar. I do a lot of meat and a lot of just veggie, low carb veggies and fat. Well, I ended up they brought us out two desserts that day. for Father's Day. And my son was like, you got to try this lemon meringue pie. And oh my gosh, Rainey, I tried it and it was so good. You know
Aw.
what? That was one day I woke up the next day and I was like, Jennifer, that was just a dumb move. Like, you did not
Oh,
need to eat all that. So my point to this is, yes, sometimes we do those things, but I think the idea here is that give yourself grace, right? Allow
give yourself
yourself to
grace.
back up. Yeah, back up and
Yeah,
say it's okay, whatever season you are in, to accept where you are, right? And as long as you're making that conscious choice and you're okay with the choice in that season, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, and it's like I always think of it as seasons and speeds. And if I can sync those two things, it's a perfect world for me. But
Yeah,
if it's sometimes it's, running and sometimes it's a walking pace, sometimes it's a sprint.
yeah,
And the reason I'm doing those things are because of the schedule that I've built, the balance that I've built for that week or for that month, or because I know I have these certain pieces where I'm not available.
yeah,
I don't want to be available. And, and so to do that, to get that luxury of my time, I have to sprint in some other days that maybe I don't really want to, but I'm doing it because this whole this whole schedule is really important to me, and on where and how I spend the time. So when my point is when I'm sprinting or if I'm just not moving at all, I don't feel bad. Like
yeah,
I'm not like, oh, I wish I wasn't doing this, or oh, I wish I would have worked harder yesterday. It's like, no, 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 no. I recognize each speed, and hopefully align it with that season. So
yeah.
those are my balance. That's how I
Yeah, no, this is
feel
good because
balance.
it's getting me on this whole idea of preventing the burnout. Because one of the things that I work with people a lot is on, and I will kind of share this with you about from my perspective, how I operate. So for many years, as a high achiever, I got to get a drink. It's like all of a sudden I got a cough. I don't usually drink
Hydration.
that. Yeah, it's like all that. It's like all of a sudden I got a cough. As a high achiever, I always talk about this whole crash and burn thing, where
Hmm.
I recognize that a lot of my stuff kind of manifests in my health. And so I would go, 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 and then just boom, crash and burn. And my son is the same way, tends to kind of do some of the same similar behaviors. And so for me, this kind of came to head in 2012. I got diagnosed with this rare nerve condition, and it took me a while to actually go back and really take accountability and recognize that although, yes, I was diagnosed with this disorder, there were certain patterns of behavior that were actually contributing to this. And I say
Hmm.
that because for a long time I was bitter and angry about it. And then I was able to go back and really assess and look at my role in this. And so now I'm very big on, and I'm not saying it's perfect because we're human, we're complex, right? And so there are moments, yes, where I sometimes do get stressed out, I overcommit or whatever, but I do try to be very methodical about the way I iron out my days and my weeks. And
Yes.
so, and two, and I think that gets back to all this stuff we're talking about, like the boundaries and knowing who your people are and what you're willing to accept, learning how to say no to something that does not fit in the plan or really doesn't align with your overall goals, vision,
Hmm.
values,
Hmm.
right? But also recognizing that maybe your skill set is not appropriate for it too, and being able to say maybe this isn't something I should take on because I'm not equipped. Right. So
Hmm.
I think all of this we're kind of talking about is just being really conscientious and aware of the choices that we make, right? And whether that be our weekly, self-care practice or our taking on business opportunities or having coffee with whatever that looks like in the capacity of our day. So I don't know if you want to add to that. I feel like this is something we're kind of diving into, which is so important for women to understand.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said is so important because I've been there too with, run, 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 and then you just want to burn out. And then you start the cycle all over again. And it's just it's like an engine. Remember the old lawnmowers? You'd pull some string on them and then they'd start up and it's like you pull and okay, I'm going. And it just makes you feel like you can't think clearly. You can't operate from that high level. You
Right.
can't, I mean, you're just reacting at constantly. And I think we all are going to have those crazy, hectic, high workload days. They're inevitable. They really are. But I think being able to break them down into components that you can actually chew on and think about, and then commit to getting them done by the time frame you've anticipated is the best thing that you can do for yourself. And I mean that because I could tell you I have so many things I'd like to do today, Jennifer. Like it'd be so great. I'm leaving the country next week and I already have exactly what we need to do. I already sent my significant other a to-do list this morning,
I love it.
Jennifer. I'm like, this is what we need to accomplish by the end of the day, EOD.
Yep.
And he's probably just like, oh my gosh. But the reality is we can't.
Right.
And so first, know what you need to accomplish. Second, break it down into manageable pieces. And third, measure it. Make sure it's where you feel good about releasing it to the world. You know, when we find ourselves just push, 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 I find my output is not as great as it could be.
Right.
I find that when my team is under that same feeling, their output is not as great as it could be either. So, you know, give yourself a minute and really decide, is this the work I am capable of? And if it's not, that's, I feel like, how you know to give yourself a little bit more time and break it down to more manageable tasks.
Yeah. The other day I was I was guesting on, because sometimes I go on other shows too. So I was guesting on another show and we were talking about my story and kind of how I got to where I was today. And she asked me a question like, what is like one thing I would tell somebody to do? And I can't remember at that time what I said, but I always go back because you're probably like I am. I'm sort of kind of a meat and potato girl. I'm like, show me what you did and then I will replicate
Yeah.
what you did.
Tell me
Like, I
what
don't
you
want
did for me.
yeah, I
Yes.
don't want to have to reinvent the wheel. I don't want to,
Yeah.
and I'm an idea person, so I do come up with a lot of ideas, but sometimes I just want to follow. If somebody's done it and they've been successful, you know, show me what you
100%.
do. So when we talk about like these, you talked about to-do lists, which I think is really good. I do those too. I have, in fact, you're going to laugh because here's mine for today. It's on this white piece of paper and it's just scribbled. And somebody asked I think my son asked me one day, he's like, why do you not just write like in a straight list? And you know what? I'm creative. And
You're
for
like,
me,
my brain does not think that way.
yeah, I don't want to because I'm bored. And then I'm going to look at that. If I do this, it's like a game. It's a puzzle. I've numbered this like all over. There's no even
Hilarious.
pattern to the number. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like, so I have to purposely stimulate my brain to be like, okay, where's number 1? Do I want to do that? Okay, let's skip. I have to go on the paper and look for it. But I can't do it like that. It has to be kind of creative. So I think, you know, again, working with our skill sets, but I think what is something like if you were going to advise somebody maybe right now to, let's talk about this, get some kind of balance in their life. And I always say harmony because I think that's kind of a little bit, like you said, we're ebb and flowing here, but maybe something they could do. We talked to-do list. Anything else we could add to this?
Yeah, I think to-do lists are a very like that's so basic in a way. As you know, it's like I mean we all have things to do, right? So at the
Yeah.
very essence, we all have a to-do list.
Right.
And I am someone that starts with a list and then breaks it down on my calendar. If it is not on my calendar, it will not get done, period. And because it is how it helped me bridge the 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 sense of lost time in my brain. I mean, you
Wow.
take me to lunch, I'm there with you chatting for 3 hours, Jennifer, until I have like an alarm that goes off.
Because you're a
Or
connector.
yeah, my alarm. I was like, oh God, you gotta go. I mean, you know, my coordinator on my team, she pulls me out of meetings because she's like, Rainey, like you've been there for like you gotta go. You gotta go to the next thing.
Yeah.
So being able to align your list with your calendar and measurable dates to be done is a game changer.
Love it.
Then from there, breaking it into project management pieces on, you know, a Asana or a Trello board or things like that, and embracing automation. I mean, what in the world would we do without
No.
automation at this
Right.
stage
Yeah.
in 2025, right? Like, are you kidding me? If you can't look around your day and find 5 things to automate, you know, you're not looking in the right places, I think. I mean, automate, you know, 5 new things, change 5 new things a month, maybe even.
Yeah.
Figure out what you can have that you don't have to keep thinking about so you can dedicate that bandwidth to something incredible.
Right.
And not these menial repetitive things that we just don't have time for.
Yeah. Speaking of automation, I'm telling you, that is something that I'm learning so to do. For a while I've had a couple co-hosts on the show, and one of them was really good about doing like all the automation stuff. And when she left, I was like, because I had never really had to do that. And so I'm telling you, this is what I realized. I just recently was helping another successful colleague. She was getting her podcast up and running. And I realized while I was telling her how to do all this, how many things I had actually set up and like created and done. And I was almost like, oh my gosh, just let me do it. It's easier for me to just do it than to try to explain this to you.
Yep. I hear you.
Because I have like the course on my website, and then I have an automation that goes out from there, like the email sequence that goes from there, right? Like all for the podcast talk, we were talking prior to the show, the automation we do for the guests before they come on the show, all these little things,
it's so
right?
much.
It is, but once you set it up, it's such a game changer, because now you can remove yourself from these tedious minutia tasks, right? And you can put your energy in the places where it needs to be, where you're most effective.
Yeah, I hired a company this past year, at the end of last year, to dedicate fractional CFO and automation to my insurance agency, for example. So I have them on retainer, and we're working on so many projects. And I walked into this thinking, if I don't do this, what does my end of the year of 2025 look like? It's going to look like the same. All my systems are going to look the same as they did at the end of 2024. Yeah. And wow, I mean, the amount of technology available to us that just wasn't progressive or really fair to me or my team, right? To not find some more efficiency for them. Yeah. And so it was something, I made the choice to invest in, and I'm doing it in my other businesses as well. We actually created an AI podcasting course, and I'll send over a link. You can put it in your show notes for anyone wanting to create a podcast from scratch to help save them time with AI and ease, and without all the overwhelm and all the steps that you just named, that we have to do as a host. Right. Because what we're doing is the fun part. I mean, this is great, know, and all the other stuff
is the back end. Yes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I'm with you. Well, I applaud you for all the things you're doing, and for the willingness to learn to delegate and remove the things that are not serving you well. You need them for your business, but they're not places where you need to be spending all of your time. And so I applaud you for recognizing where you need to make those shifts, because you're right. If you continue to do the same thing and expect different results, that's a definition of insanity, right? You got to make changes if you want to go up. Look, all my 20
good reminder.
Listen, that's what I did. I empowered women. I'd be like, why are we doing the same things over and over? That's just the definition of insanity. We're expecting different results, but not willing to do different things. So I love it. Rani, I do want to ask you kind of I guess maybe more of I guess all of these have kind of been personal questions, but I want to touch a little bit upon some of the challenge part of this, because here's the thing. I think people coming on here, and I know you recognize this, they look at us and they think, oh my gosh, like Jennifer's great at doing these interviews. And by the way, you're an amazing interviewer yourself, because I've listened to some of your stuff, and you're phenomenal. But we've been doing this for a while. Like, we've been doing the things we've been doing for a while. So eventually, I always say, if you decided tomorrow to go ride a unicycle, you're going to do one of two things. Either you're going to figure out or you're going to get off, right? And that's what we did. Right. We figured it out. I want to know from you, like, maybe some of the hard things you mentioned a minute ago, kind of finding systems, right? But maybe a challenge that you really had to work through to help you get to where you are today.
Yeah. Oh, there's so many.
Yeah, I know. They're always is, right?
Yeah. There's so many. I think, I'll start kind of backwards. I mean, I think the podcast is a great example. I waited 6+ months to start my podcast because I'm like, total imposter syndrome kicking in. Who's going to listen to me? What in the world do I have to, who's going to even be a guest? Like, right. It was this idea that I had, and I was, that feeling where you talk yourself into something, you talk yourself out of something. It's just like happening simultaneously. Yeah. And, I went through that. I went through, the frustration of like, okay, this is a lot of work that I don't get paid for. Right. Don't know if this is a time thing. I better either figure this out or get out. Right. And that was something that I had to spend a little bit of time. And then we flash back, in my skincare company. I mean, are you kidding me? Everybody said, "What do you know about skincare? Are you
Mm.
sure?" I love my son at the time. He's probably like 10, and he's like, "Well, you're either going to be a billionaire or you're going to go broke, mom." And I'm like, "Okay,
Kids are honest, aren't they?
sage advice, my dear." But the point is I did not know about a lot of components of that industry, and it has been a learning curve for
Sure.
me in FDA compliance and formulas and
Mm.
packaging and tariffs and China and sourcing material and all of these things. Not to mention, I love marketing, love it, love it, love it. But the consumer is a bit different
Yeah.
and the space is different. These challenges that I'm having to push through. And I spend a lot of time learning it on my own, Jennifer, but then hiring the right person or empowering the team that I have to also learn it. Hey, this
Mm.
is what we have to figure out how to do. Here are some resources. Let's get on it. And then simultaneously, if we need to hire someone who's an expert to work with us on this while we figure it out, let's do that too. And so realizing what I'm really weak at has been one of my greatest strengths, because it's a lot of stuff, Jennifer.
Yeah.
It's a lot. I mean, really.
Yeah. You got a lot going
Um,
on.
and insurance, starting from scratch. I mean, moving to Texas, insurance is about a business where you got to know a lot of people. You got to talk to a lot of people. You got to sell a lot of insurance to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
And that is what I wanted to do, except I didn't know a lot of people. And so, it was challenging to build a community and a network and a company without having the components that require, without having those components. It was
Sure.
very uncomfortable to go and ask someone for something when I started marketing for that insurance agency. I do not like asking people for things at
Right.
all. I mean, I'm just, I've never been able to do that. And I had to learn that how to do that and why I was worth it, what I was offering them, what the value of it was.
Hmm. Hmm.
That was probably the hardest thing I have had to learn in my career with insurance.
Yeah.
And I learned it early and quick, and hopefully I'm able to help others now with that same skill, because I can spot it immediately on new hires,
Yeah.
or when my existing team does it, when they kind of weasel out of something, when I know they know, or they're awesome,
Sure.
and
Sure.
they kind of weasel, but I'm like, oh, I know what that is, like I do that. I've been there. So my struggles have helped me, Jennifer, to, help the people in my businesses, and I'm going to keep finding them. I mean, we're going to run into struggle in everything we do. It's
Agree.
never all perfect, but that's where I think people who have that grit and that creativity and that curiosity to, like you said earlier, find a better way. I'm always looking for a better way to do something. And if we can just keep that mentality, I think that's the game changer.
I think that's the best thing. We talked about so many things today, but I feel like that's like the best thing is just the strive to find a better way, right? Like
Mhm.
it's not about reinventing the wheel. It's just improving constantly being willing to improve, right? And
And it applies to everything. It
oh
doesn't
yeah,
even, it's like not just a business skill,
right.
right? I mean, even like, we're on vacation or something and we've got a plan, and I'm like, oh, I think we can do this a better way. We,
Oh
we
yeah.
can do better than this. And I'm like, okay, I've already reworked the route and the itinerary and then it's like, this is a dream day. We're gonna have a dream day today. We're not just gonna do like the average day. Like, we're up in the ante on this one. So it's how to find the better. We get one day, right? And that's it. And we never get it back. When my son gets out of the car for school in the morning, enjoy the best day ever. You're never going to have this Wednesday back in your whole life of eighth grade, right? Make it amazing. And he's probably going to remember like my mom was crazy when I get out of the car in the morning, but
They'll
I
appreciate you for it.
truly mean it.
Yes.
And so find a better way today.
I love it, Rainey. Well, you are doing incredible stuff, and I love it. And I appreciate you sharing all this information. I think it's important, and I think we touched upon a lot of really important topics. Specifically, I think these are areas that women struggle for. Men struggle for them too, but I think women really a lot of the self worth and these things they play out in what you're talking about in our sales and in our bringing the right people into our space and creating these boundaries for how we want our work life, harmony to look like, right? And so I think that's kind of like our overall theme here really is about being willing to improve, right? And
Hmm.
being
Hmm.
really conscientious about how we do that going forward. So if we were going to like sum all this up, right? Like I always have to do these like when we're trying to get the titles for these shows, like how do we sum these episodes up what these people bring to the table? And Right. I don't know about you. I mean, maybe when you do your show, you kind of know like what's going to be. I never know when I bring you guys, women, men, whatever, whomever I bring on the show. I never really know exactly how we're going to roll this episode out. I like to let it organically flow. But
Yeah.
I think it's such a beautiful thing because we get in here and we find topics that we can actually connect on. And in this particular one, we had a lot of parallels and areas that we could bring together and talk about and openly share them. So thank you for your willingness and participation and all the fun wisdom you brought to the show today.
Jennifer, thank you. I love your approach, your
Thank you.
natural flow and your energy and everything you're bringing to the table for men and women. So thank you so much for having me as a guest.
Thank you. So if our listeners listening to this today, they want to either find this course, maybe they want to find out about the skincare, maybe investment, I don't know, maybe they need insurance. Where do they want to find you, Rainey?
They can find me at ranialfers.com or on Instagram. And to support and visit the podcast, workingwomenmentor.com. More information about the course and our guest, and to apply to be a guest if they're interested.
Perfect. And I love that you got a website for yourself because, yes, you needed to bring all those things together so they can find you because you are like me. You got too many things going on. I don't know. I feel like now I've got a website for this. We just currently, my daughter, my middle child, and I started a little pet sitting business too. So I have a website and a whole
Oh,
little, I'm trying to build that up for her. And so she can kind of take that over eventually. But yes, I feel like I've got a website for this. I got a website for that. So we have to have just the jenniferloading.com so that everybody can go to the hub. And so
hey,
I
we're
applaud you for that.
multifaceted. I mean, there's so much more to women other than just one thing.
Is that not the truth? Yes, we're moms, we're wives, we're
Pick
successful
a drop down
leaders.
box.
That's
Yeah.
right. We just do it all, right? I love it. Well, you are doing amazing things, and I want to
Thanks,
applaud you
Jennifer.
for continuing to inspire.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. And of course, to our audience, we want to say to you, we appreciate you, love you. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you found this episode both inspiring and informative. And of course, if you do, you know what to do. Do all the things. Hit the like, the subscribe, the share, comment. Help us support the mission here. And so we can continue to share all these fabulous stories and content with you. And as I always say, in order to live the extraordinary, you must start. And every start begins with a decision. You guys take care, be safe, be kind to one another, and we will see you next time.